Hello, hello. So this is sort of the panel version 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know. No, it's version 3. I tried some 6 micron mylar because everyone is always asking why I use 12 micron. 6 is lighter, and yes, it is. And my response was always. I cannot stretch 6 micron as hard as the 12, and I needed to get a better high frequency response, which is kind of weird because you would think lighter material works better. But the 6 micron sounded shit, as I kind of, well, not knew, but expected, and well, it's always a bummer if it is. If it sucks. After that, I tried some other method. The reason why it falls off is actually the magnet distance, and the conductors run in between these magnets. And the problem is when the magnet is wide, the mylar doesn't follow the signal very well. So one thing you can do is actually decrease magnet width. That's one option. Option 2 is this aluminum foil. It's a wider conductor, so it drives more of the membrane. So the distance from driving conductor to the next one is smaller. Only downside is this stuff is 35 micron. And we'll end up with a half a ohm of resistance, which is way too low. And as well is heavy, quite heavy. Not really heavy, but I mean for a tweeter it could be way lighter because I don't need half a ohm of resistance. I need like 4 or 3 or whatever, or higher. And since this is so a small panel, it's quite hard to get a decent resistance. So, what I'm trying right now is a different approach, and I'm really not sure if it works, but this music is fucking annoying. I'm gonna... It's amazing how YouTube, you choose a nice number, nice music song, a nice song, and then it thinks you might as well like this incredibly shitty song, which is not the case. But okay, let's see if I can get you closer so we can get a better look. Yeah, it's not, I might need to zoom in. So get this wire out of the way. But as you can see, I spaced out the tweeter wires in between the magnets. So there's one wire running in between the magnets, and then one wire on each side. So the 3 wires you see is one run. So the direction of current is all the same. And I hope I can sort of emulate what happens with the foil. So that would be nice, because in this way you can get a higher resistance, and I can use as many turns as I wish, and the resistance I can scale up or down, and at the same time the wire is way thinner or lighter than this tape, so could be nice. Another thing I tried here is using a thicker wire, but to get a decent resistance I had to add more turns. So there are a bit too much turns on this foil at this moment. And I as well did not place it very well. I mean, here it's against the spacer, which is not good. Should make them half centimeter shorter. And this drives low end incredibly well. So well, I'll end up exceeding my X-max all the time. Or all the time, quite fast. So this is really nice for a bass panel with a much bigger DC spacing or higher resonance. So yeah, it's nice to. I will use it in the future. This is 3 turns for each channel, so there's six of these wires. That's quite a lot. The previous version had a much thinner wire and had only 2 turns per channel, so 4 wires in total. But yeah, for a big panel, it is what Magnepan does as well. They use 2 runs, I think, at the outer edges and 1 run in the middle. Or is it 3 and 2? Could well be. Should take a look at that. So yeah, I'm gonna solder the pads on here to use or to try this weird 3-wire thing and see what happens. Okay, so this was the old measurement with the tape, but we're gonna ignore this because we're gonna redo it to compare them. 21. So clean canvas, so to speak. It's fucking cold in here. Oh, I can't say fuck or oh, I did it again. YouTube, you know. Okay, so the panel is over there. There it is. It's a mess, but well, doesn't really matter. So at first we're gonna do the. Is the mic in the middle? Yeah, somewhat. It's about 1 meter away. On both tweeters I put 22 microfarad caps, but you will notice the crossover frequency is quite different because the wire thing I made just now is 3.5 ohms and the tape thing is still 0.5 ohm, so it will be crossed a lot higher, I think. But we'll see. Let's do the tape first. There we go. Okay, that's the tape. I don't dare to put it way much higher. Well, let's do it a little bit higher, but since 0.5 ohm is not, most amplifiers don't like it. Let's do it again. Okay, so that looks quite nice, to be honest. Let's do the wire thing. You can hear it is crossed lower. Huh. Well, there is one thing to expect. 0.5 ohm compared to 3.5 ohm. Yeah, there's loads of more power going into the 0.5 ohm version. But actually they let's smooth it out a bit so we can see what's happening. Not this much, but let's make it 12. Okay. Same for this one. Okay, so first of all we can see that the higher resistance tweeter is, they both have the same cap on it, but since the resistance is higher, it's crossed lower, so it extends lower. Quite a lot, by the way. The other one, since it's 0.5 ohm, its crossover frequency is much higher. And I think it explains this hump as well and the rising response. I think it's even like crossing over really high, so it looks a rising response, but it's actually partially the cap. But I think they kind of extend the same amount, which is good. really good. I should try the half an ohm without cap to see what's happening, but it's a bit tricky. But let's remove the cap and see if my amplifier survives. Ooh, you can hear straight away that the half a ohm version is so much louder, which is, well, that's normal. I am gonna screw down the volume a little bit to not load my amp too much. So, let's see what the... I'll give it a name first, because otherwise we don't know what it is. This was foil with cap. I have to explain. Wires with cap. I have to push on raw response and then back to frequency response, and then it only saves. If you only change the name, it doesn't save it, so. Okay, so we got those. Let's bring in some new fields. First of all, wires with cap, okay. So that's the one we're gonna measure now without cap. Let's see what it does. Not so much. Not so much. So the cap that's on there now almost plays its complete frequency range it can produce, as you can see. So most certainly you have to cross over this tweeter higher than this, which is no big deal because it's quite low as it is. So not bad at all. Let's call it wires without cap. This time I will name it before I measure, then I will save. Foil without cap. The fact that it's less loud is because I decreased the volume, because I don't want to fuck up my amp. Another thing that you can, which is hard to, well, I'll line it up because then you can actually see where the cap comes in. Because the high frequencies will remain the same with or without cap. So as you can see, it has some, it rises even in the low end, which is, well, can be used, so that's good. Let's go to the foil version. Foil with cap, looks like this. Now, I hope my amplifier doesn't shut off. Apparently it doesn't mind. Okay. If I compare it to the wires, that's... Oh, okay. I forgot to change the channel. I thought this looks quite the same. That's not correct. So here we go again. Let's not blow the amp. It's quite louder, I must add. But this is a more proper way of seeing what's happening. I mean, it is louder, that's for sure. But it's because the impedance is so fucking low. So now let's smooth it the same way and line it up with the wires without a cap. And then we can see what happens in the frequency domain. Oh. At least more clearly. So I have to choose a frequency where the amplitude is kind of the same. I reckon I'll choose the low end here. Something like this.
But then you actually see it falls off quite quickly, the foil type. Although at the beginning it looked like it extended quite further, but it was only because it was way much louder, and I crossed it over apparently around 10k or something. If you look at the foil width cap, I'll remove the wires. So this part is this part, but let's line these up. You can actually see how high it was crossed because of the resistance was so low. So there. So I crossed it actually at 14k. That's a way of extending high frequency. It costs you some power, maybe a lot of power. But this is what actually happened. So the foil can work if you had a larger panel, but with this small panel, it's impossible to get a proper resistance. And as well, something to notice is that these wires extend much further. So even if I do it like this, for instance, might be a little bit more fair, then still the foil drops off here, and the wire is even having a hump, which is not really nice, but at least it reaches 20k with ease. I think even 25k, but I didn't measure up till there, so no clue, but certainly 20k. So that's cool, and I'll show you a measurement where the wires were not spaced out like I did right now. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah. Tape tweeter. There. This is what happened if you used only the wire in the center of the magnetic field. Like a huge drop. I will smooth it less so you can see what happens. Oh, it's living its own life. Ah, it stopped. So the blue line is wires in the middle of the gap. Foil was a little bit better. As you can see, it extends a little bit further. But also the volume difference here. So if I line it up, it's quite a lot of dB down at 16k, yeah. So well, there's much room to gain in ways of extending frequency with just normal wires. There's one thing that's cool to check out if I got the time, is get FEM into play and see what the magnetic field does in the center between the magnets compared to the sides of the magnets. At the sides, the magnetic field will be probably a little bit lower than in the middle, in the gap. So what you can do, or what you could do, is if you used, for instance, five turns you could add 2 turns on the side, 1 turn in the middle, and 2 turns on the other side. And in this way you can counter the fact that the magnetic field is less strong on the sides compared to the middle, and you will drive your membrane more evenly. That might result in maybe lower distortion, maybe a better looking plot as well. But as a quick test, this is quite nice. So I can reach 20k easily with wires depending on how you place them. That's cool. No resistors required to pad them. No weird impedance for amplifiers. So this is nice. I'm pretty glad, and gonna have a beer now to celebrate. See you around when I'll create the normal panel. I also made a jig, by the way, for the wire, so I'll show that in the next video when I'm gonna remove everything from this panel and implement the stuff I've tested the last few days.